Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report After Show. We have with us Thomas Johnson, who is the author of Pursuit of Exhibit 35 in the OJ Simpson Murder Trial, and also he's a producer of a documentary called Serpents Rising, an independent investigation of the OJ Simpson Murder Trial. And he's the, what is this called? The, oh boy, I don't have my notes in front of me. But how would you describe, what's your title at this Ocean Medical Research Group?
Investigative Team Coordinator.
Investigative Team Coordinator of this Ocean Medical Investigative Group.
Right.
Right. Okay, so listen, we can just continue where we left off. You were talking about, now listen, there seems to be a lot of drug connections.
Right.
To all of this. Now, one thing, Howard Weitzman, his specialty was a drug attorney.
Okay.
And he came off the trial because he said there was a conflict of interest. Now you have the connections of Ron Goldman's mother's employer, who was a big giant drug dealer down in Chicago.
No, not employer. Husband.
Oh, really?
Husband. See, this woman that is with Ron Goldman's father, Fred, now is his third wife. That's not Ron's mother.
I knew that.
All right. So when Fred Goldman married this woman 7 months after her husband went into the federal penitentiary. Her husband also had issues with her about, allegedly, that I read in one of the Chicago newspapers, allegedly had issues with her removing the children from the close proximity of the federal prison that he was going to be in and taking the children to California, okay? Because Fred has got her 3 children. Those are his stepchildren. Their name is Glass, okay? When in Marvin Glass's case file, before he was being sentenced, they did a pretrial medical examination on him as well. And the doctors decided that this man suffered from narcissistic personality disorder, that he was a malignant narcissist. In other words, he didn't really care about the value of your life. He cared about your life was minuscule. You know, he was important. His sphere of influence was the most important thing that had to be catered to. He had the same disease that U.S. military medical personnel said that Saddam Hussein had when they, did an examination on him before they hung him in Iraq. Mm-hmm. Narcissistic personality disorder, malignant narcissism. So in essence, these type of people will kill you because you stole a parcel that belonged to them.
Yeah, because their own importance is so much greater than everything else in the world.
Exactly. And this is what happened to his business partner. Marvin Glass had a crew of leg breakers that would enforce his will. And so apparently he had gotten into a dispute with his law partner about some files that he was going to take with him. And the partner said, no, you're not going to take it because, you owe $25,000 or whatever. So he had his henchmen catch this guy jogging in Lincoln Park. They allegedly were supposed to break his legs, but instead they shot him through the head. And apparently the bullet went through the temple and came out the other side, but it didn't kill him, And the guy whose name is Pritzker, and I don't know if he's related to that wealthy Chicago hotel family magnate in Chicago or not, but that's his name, Michael Pritzker. And he stated on the witness stand during the attempted murder trial of Marvin Glass that I had gone to him and said, man, why did you do this to me? And his response was, well, I'll make it up to you. Okay. the people that he had contracted to go and do this to this man, they also testified that it was Marvin Glass that gave us the contract to go, do what we did to this guy. See? So here again, you've got a guy, and this stuff that I'm telling you about is in all of the Chicago newspapers because the guy started to flee the authorities when they came down on him as a drug kingpin they charged him with importing over 100 pounds of cocaine into Chicago. So they wanted him for that, and they wanted him for a big marijuana farm that he had association with down in Arkansas. So he had plenty of time hanging over his head, and he had an opportunity to decide which way he wanted to go, and he chose to become a confidential informant. In fact, his handler was the noted author Scott Turow, who was the U.S. District Attorney for the Northern District of Illinois. And so this guy was a very dangerous man. He didn't have any reservation about having you taken out.
Let me ask you a question. Didn't Patty Glass testify against him?
Did who?
Patty Glass.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think she did. If she did, it wasn't. I didn't see anything in the record where she did. I can't say that she did or she did not, but based upon the stuff that I was aware of, I don't even think they needed Patty Glass. The feds pretty much had a jacket waiting for him, once they got to him,
Okay.
Because they had been monitoring him. He was the lawyer for the Colombian cartels. He wasn't dealing with little people. He was dealing with the cartels. So if they wanted to do deals in Illinois and then have a lawyer that had the judges that could, get them off the hook, he was their man. So he made his commission, he charged them a retainer as their lawyer, but he also made a commission off of the drug deals that they made. So he was a multimillionaire, and he did some crazy stuff that people with a whole lot of money might do. He rented an elephant for his birthday party and had.
Right, I remember that story. Right.
Right. So he had the elephant coming down the street, and he was on top of the elephant. The elephant is the big Punjab out in his community at that time. But he also had these other idiosyncrasies. He had this hit crew that would do what he wanted them to do, and he kept them busy robbing his neighbors' valuables from their houses. They lived in an exclusive area. I think it was called North Oaks, which is a suburb of Chicago, and I guess in the wealthy gated community or whatever they have out there, he would know when his friends were out of town, and he would have his crew come in and rob them.
Listen, Thomas, I have a caller wants to call in and ask some questions. Are you willing to take calls?
Sure.
Okay, he's a friendly guy.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Chris.
Hey, what's up, man?
Hey, welcome to the show, my friend. We have Thomas Johnson here, the author, and Chris Wallace. What kind of question you got, Chris?
I thought it was a really good show. Obviously, I haven't heard you guys speaking just now, but I had seen some information about Glenn Rogers, and I was just wondering about the Mad King George's disease. If you could just expand on it a little bit, and if you think that contributed to I know that he killed 70, he claimed 70 plus people, and
right.
I was just a little curious about the actual disease itself. It was alcohol induced, or
it could. If you read the symptoms of it, you will find that alcohol can be a catalyst to triggering the effects of the disease. But it can come on without alcohol as well. But certainly alcohol they've tracked that to being a contributing factor. Mad King George's disease is clinically referred to as acute intermittent porphyria, and it is the only strain of the disease that I understand that attacks the brain. So when there is an overproduction of an iron-rich enzyme called heme, the same thing that we refer to in hemoglobin, that overproduction will go directly to the brain of the individual that is afflicted with the disease. He has been afflicted with acute intermittent porphyria since he was a child, so this is a congenital disease that this man has. And when you listen to some of the remarks that he has made relative to calling loved ones after he's killed someone and smacking them on the behind while he's talking to his sister or somebody, that, in my opinion, is an indication that the guy, was probably still under the influence of the psychosis caused by the disease. And I'm not speaking from a medical standpoint. I'm just saying that, what killer would call up his mother or his sister and say, I'm smacking the behind of one of the women that I've just killed, And so
I agree. I saw that documentary that you guys referred to.
I talked with his brother, one of his brothers, who he initially sent to us in 2001. I talked to him last year in 2013. And he and a private investigator both told me something that I had read before, that at the murder sites of these different women, they would find the telltale signs of the disease in the toilet. And a person who suffers from porphyria, they will defecate, and when they defecate, they will leave an iridescent purplish enzyme. That's where the word porphyria comes from, purple from the Greek word porous. And so the police allegedly were able to note that this enzyme was in the toilet. We do the discovery, and thus we find out that this guy has this disease. I read that in 2000, it was in 2000 when I had access, when I was given access to his PC-187 file, his death row appeal file. That's when I first came up on the disease, but it was just referred to as porphyria. And as I began to study it and talk to medical specialists in the disease, porphyria, from the American Porphyria Foundation, for some reason, they tend to be a little protective in the United States. They don't tend to want to associate the psychotic effects that it produces, violent mood swings, paranoia, schizophrenia, all of this stuff. They recognize, and they will tell you this is what happens when this toxic effect takes over the brain. But whether it will cause violence, they stop short of that. But I talked with a British neurologist who had written a paper that was published in the Royal Journal of Medicine in 1964, and the British Society for the British Society Royal Journal of Medicine, something that had a long title like that, but his paper of a Dr. Sebastian Illes was published in the 1964 edition of that esteemed medical journal, and the title of his research paper was On Porphyria and the Etiology, or the Study of Werewolves.
Oh, wait a second. So this disease is related to the phenomenon of werewolves?
This is what the doctor we don't want to go that far. The doctor was doing was, in 1964, people really did not know about the significance of this disease and how violent it could make a person act, and that it can take an individual who is a suave and romantic type of fellow and, sitting up having a pleasant conversation, and then all of a sudden he switches on you.
Right. And
he becomes a monster. And this is what this Dr. Illis was trying to point out in its title. And I asked him, I said, well, didn't you have some problems with that title? I mean, did your peers denounce you for it? And he says, you know what, my peers were very gracious to me, surprisingly, and they were pleased that I had written this paper. And basically what he was comparing it to, he was comparing the AIP, or the acute intermittent porphyria, or Mad King George's disease, to the violence of the werewolf when you change. But he was also comparing the other strains of the disease, because the other strains of the disease are light sensitive. So and when you go out into the sunlight or whatever and experience the ultraviolet rays, they can cause a transformation, a grotesque transformation of the appendages of your body, of your nose, of your ears. Things begin to change and can turn people into grotesque individuals. So those people, he was saying in his paper, tend to come out at nighttime when they don't have to deal with the sunlight. And if you combine that with an individual who suffers from acute intermittent porphyria and he comes out at night, then chances are he's going to tear you apart. And so he compares it to the fabled myth of the werewolves.
Right.
In his documentation.
So, Christian, before you called in, we were talking about the drug dealing connections of Marvin Glass, who was the ex-husband of Patty Glass, is it?
Correct.
Right.
Patty Glass Goldman now.
Now, one of the things, too, is I noticed something I heard about was that at the funeral for Ron Goldman, when Ron Goldman's actual mother, his biological mother, was there, and she wrote her name in the guest book,
yes,
that Ron Goldman's sister crossed her name out and wrote "doesn't matter."
Right.
Yeah, you heard that story too, huh?
Well, I didn't hear it, but I don't put it past her because, we have tapes of how nasty she speaks of her actual mother, and and also I think it appears in her deposition as well, Kim Goldman's deposition, that she shows a nasty attitude towards her real mother. Why? I don't know, but it seems to be she doesn't say anything about being mistreated by her mother, but she just acts like she's greedy, like our mother's not entitled to one penny,
right,
for whatever that's for, But the thing that I found fascinating is that Ron Goldman had an extensive case file, and while we were doing the investigation, for whatever reason, I guess we kind of indirectly got influenced by the narrative ourselves, because we never honed in on Ron Goldman. We let the dead rest in peace. We didn't hone in on Nicole Brown Simpson. But one of our investigators came to us and said, I've got some people out around the Cheviot Hills tennis courts. They want to talk to you guys. They've seen you on the news and, Court TV and Fox News, etc. And they claim that they have information that Ron Goldman was selling drugs in the Cheviot Hills tennis court parking lot. So I talked with one of the people out there that was willing to talk, and that person said, yeah, he was selling drugs and Nicole Simpson and Faye Resnick were laying around sunbathing, but it looked like they were pointing out marks that wanted to buy drugs, you know. But we reported to the park administration on a number of occasions saying this guy is out here in the parking lot selling drugs, but they never would do anything about it. And then we got our cameras and we started taking pictures. And then we took the pictures to the park administration, and they finally decided that they were going to fire or let him go, whatever happened to him. We couldn't get to, they wouldn't give us access to the personnel files at the park board. So I said, okay, won't keep beating that bush.
Wait, because Ron Goldman was employed there?
He was employed as the tennis instructor at the Cheviot Hills tennis courts.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what do you know about Faye Resnick?
What do I know about her?
Yeah.
Well, I know that when we requested, you see in the documentary a document where I told you that I tell you in the book that when I contacted our people, because by now we had a stream of contacts that we could trust inside the Superior Court. So when I wasn't making any headway and I couldn't get the people to come on camera at the Cheviot Hills, so I said, well, let me check on Ron Goldman's background. So I check on Ron Goldman's background, and our people say, yeah, he's got a criminal background. He says he's got a case file, but they don't keep it downtown. They keep that file out in Malibu at the municipal court. So I make an appointment. I go out. I'd fly back to California, and I drive out to Malibu. Now, the first thing that you deal with when you come into the Malibu courthouse, they don't let you come through the security. The first thing they check for is whether you got a camera. So if you got a camera, they take it from you immediately. And so, take your camera back out to your car, come back. So once I did that, I went on inside, and I went through a lot of changes where the people were trying to hide and conceal Ron Goldman's case file. The first day that I came out there, I went through a lot. I talk about that in the book, But the lady who had flagged his file in the file room had gone to lunch. And so when she came back, I called her and told her that, whenever we give an assignment to one of our branches to go out and investigate something, if they go out there and they don't get it, it's like we've given them false information and then we have to pay for it. She says, well, I understand that. I said, well, we sent an investigator out to the Malibu courthouse and they said that the Ron Goldman file has been destroyed. She says, no, that file is not destroyed. I flagged it. So she said, put me on hold. She said, let me go back in here and find it. So she went back there. She was gone about 3-4 minutes, came back. She says, oh. She said, very strange. That file is not where it was. Could I put you on hold for another 3 minutes? I said, yeah. So she went back there, and then she came back in another 3 minutes. She says, I found that file. She said, but it wasn't in the place. It was in the strangest place. So, I'd been out there the day before and went through this rigmarole with these people who had lied and said that it was destroyed. Mm. And so I told the lady, her name was Missy, I said, would you mind placing that file on your desk? And I'll call back out to California and have them send an individual out there and ask for you directly. And so she did that. So it was me. I drove back out there to Malibu the next day, and the guy that I had gone to previously, he was a Hasidic Jewish fellow, He had the yarmulke on it, and he had the beard and all of that curls around his ears. I thought personally that he might have not wanted whatever was an embarrassment in the file to come out on Goldman, because the day before, when I saw him go into the file room and he came back, it was like his knees buckled when he got to the door, and he had to hold himself up in the door. And he didn't come back to the window that I was at. He turned left and started talking to his supervisor. And they walked to the back of the building, and then it was her that came to his window to tell me that that file no longer exists. So the second day when I went back, I didn't go to his window again. I had somebody else go in front of me, and finally another window opened up on the other end. It was a little Asian fellow. So I went there, and I told him this woman, Missy, had put it on her desk. He went back there and fumbled around on her messy desk, and at first I thought he didn't have it, and when he picked it up, I saw the file. It was damn near 6 inches thick. And he's walking back towards the window where I'm at, and, you know, my heart is pounding. I said, man, I'm going to get a chance to look through this file. Something is juicy in this file, and then it just dawned on me the file is thicker, wider, than the customer service window that he's got to pass it through.
Sure.
He can't slip it through the window. So he says, I'm going to have to buzz you into this room around here, this anteroom, adjacent room, and hand it through a big open window. And when he buzzed me in, he was walking down the line about 15 feet and turned the corner. But before he got to the end, I could hear him behind these curtains that blocked off the site, but I could hear him back there with his supervisor. He said, can I show him what's in this file? She said, no, you can't show him what's in this file. This file is stamped confidential. And so now I'm thinking fast. I said, well, I got to say something when this guy turns the corner. So when he turned the corner to face me, I, offered the first conversation. I said, listen, has anything in that file been sealed by the court? I said, because if it's been sealed by the court, then I can't look at it. I've got to leave. And so that caught him off guard. So he says, no, nothing has been sealed by the court. So then I reached for it. He said, but he pulled it back. He says, you can't see what's in this file. I said, well, you just said that it was nothing sealed by the court. He said, but what's in this file has been stamped confidential. So we went through all of that, and this big heavyset woman came over and snatched the file from him and told me, you can't see what's in this file because it's stamped confidential. Now I'm trying to save face. I look behind me and I see two big sheriff's deputies nonchalantly talking out in the hall, but in the doorway. So I said, no, this is not a good look. So I said, well, I tell you what, why don't you break that file down? What are you telling me? I can't find out the criminal background on a criminal. Criminal information is public information. She said, well, this information is not public. I said, well, break the file down and show me what I can see. So she trumps me. She pulls out 6 inches of document and then shoves the file at me. Here, you can look in here and see that. And so what was in there was this one sheet of paper, which was a docket sheet, And so that, I should say, that I over the next month, sent certified letters to every judge on that docket sheet that had handled that file and what we went through, and sent it to them certified return receipt requested. So whoever signed for it, we knew that judge got it and couldn't come to court and say that they did not receive it. So when I returned 3 or 4 months later in January, because this was like September, so in January when I returned to California, I went back to the courthouse. Now the head clerk had the file, and someone started off telling me, well, we had a flood here, the rains were heavy. I said, I'm not interested in hearing that. Go get your manager. So the manager came back. She had the letters that I had sent to the judges, et cetera, and she says, well, I know you. She says, I talked with all of the people, all the personnel in our office about that incident, and they said that they tried to show this guy, Thomas Johnson, this file. Now, she doesn't know I'm Thomas Johnson. She said, but he just up and left the building. I said, let me get this straight. You're saying that this man, Thomas Johnson, came 50 miles out here from Los Angeles to see these files, and when they wanted to show him the file, he just up and left. She said, yeah, that's exactly what he did according to them. I said, let me share something with you. I said, I am Thomas Johnson, and everything that I said in this written report that was sent to these judges that's signed by my supervisor is what I stand on today. She said, well, you left. I said, well, I'm here right now. I said, is that the file that looks just like the Goldman file behind your back there? She said, it is. I said, well, if I'm here now and they were going to let me see it then, let me see now. She said, you can't see what's in this file. And I said, break it down and show me what it is that I can see. So she did the same thing, broke it down to one document. So when she tried to stick it through the window, I blocked it. I said, I'll tell you what's in that file. There's nothing left in that file but a criminal docket sheet. And that's when she said, please, don't make me the bad guy. Don't make me the bad guy. She said, this file is protected by law, and you can't look in this file because it's protected by law. I said, what law protects individuals from knowing an individual's criminal background? If this guy if he was alive and wanted to come to work for us, and he was a pedophile, and we were dealing with children, we wouldn't have a right to know his criminal background? That doesn't make any sense. She said, but that's the law here. And I said, well, what law is that? So she handed me these documents, and I told her, I'm going to have to go to the library around here, but I'm coming back. I'm going to find out about this. When I went to the library, asked the librarian to pull the law, that's when I found out that Ron Goldman's criminal case file is protected by California Government Code Section 6254F, which is an exemption to the California Public Records Act. So anybody who has been cooperating as a confidential informant, you cannot examine their criminal background.
Is it possible, though, that he was an informant against Marvin Glass?
I don't know who he was an informant against. I really don't know. My suspicion is that he may have been an informant out there in Los Angeles, California, against whoever the police were looking at out in California, and they got wind of it and decided that they had to take him out. Not only take him out, he might have been related to Brett Canner being taken out. He might have been related to Michael Nig being taken out. So all three of those guys were associates of one another, and they got killed within the same 1 year, the next year, and the following year. So the fascinating thing...
That's the Viper Room stuff, am I correct?
Excuse me?
Those murders were connected to the Viper Room? Or am I confused?
Brett Canner was the owner, manager, or whatever of Dragonfly.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking, the nightclub.
Right. Okay. And Ron at the Dragonfly, What I got out of a lot of this stuff is that as I continue to do our investigation, is that a number of these sites, these coffee shops and these bistro delicatessens, all that kind of stuff was used allegedly for laundering money.
Right.
You see. And so even Ron Goldman, the allegation of him he was going to allegedly build a restaurant called
That's right.
or something, And so, you have to ask the question, where was he going to get the money to build this, Egyptian-styled restaurant? Where was he going to get the money? He was a waiter at the Mezzaluna restaurant.
With a bankruptcy.
Excuse me?
He had a bankruptcy on his record.
He had a bankruptcy on his record. He had a criminal charge associated with manipulating the credit cards on his record. Okay? He had no license. His license had been suspended and he had outstanding arrest warrants that totaled over $16,000 for his arrests. That the police hadn't come and the sheriff's department hadn't come and arrested him. He had been told to come to court at least 4 times for the one charge that made us interested in looking at case file. That didn't cause his case file to swell up to 6 inches thick. And he also had about 8 warrants in Ventura County for reckless speeding. And it just seemed like time and time again they just kept letting him off on this thing. No jail time. And all the other people that we talked to said, man, Tom, man, if you're a brother out here, or you're a Mexican out here, and they pop you and you're driving with a suspended license, you're going downtown to the county. You're going in that jail. So.
Well, did he have a good lawyer?
He didn't have any lawyer.
Didn't have any lawyer. So he was calling somebody up to get him out of this. Like when
he didn't have any lawyer on a couple of cases on a docket sheet. It said that he didn't show up and he was not represented by counsel.
Right. So that means he had a number he could call. He had some maybe a DEA agent or something like that card in his wallet that he could call up to get him out of these things.
Man, I don't know what the deal was with this guy, but that's what made us suspicious before we knew that he had his case file protected by, what we call the snitch law.
Right. Now let me ask you a question, because about OJ's defense team.
Yeah.
Now, am I to understand that you think that they sold him out?
I believe that they did.
Oh, okay. So now, but you think that there's some kind of dirt. Someone has dirt on OJ that he's not because. You follow me? Because first of all, there's a lot going on here in all this, and he's getting set up over and over again.
Yep.
Over and over. Even there was other cases too, like an assault case. They even came to his house and tried to arrest him for stealing cable TV. You remember that case, right?
Well, besides that, does that say something to you about the conduct of people, of the authorities, in what's going on in their minds as human beings to be focusing on this man, Simpson, because of these type of things?
I do. Obviously, they're trying to get a hook on this guy. But now, and he has a long history. He met FBI Director Hoover.
Yeah.
Right. He was even in an episode of the FBI on TV. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
He's in the background, he's uncredited. I think they might have added to the credits since we saw it. But he's in the background in a crowd scene of an episode of the FBI.
Okay.
Now, his mother, worked at she was a nurse, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Now, from my understanding, she was a nurse in San Francisco at a hospital.
No, I don't think his mother was a nurse. His sister is a nurse, Shirley. But I don't think his mother was a nurse. I think she might have been orderly or something like that. But I don't.
Right.
I'd have to check to see, but I don't remember his mother being cited as being a nurse. But Shirley, his sister, who acted like his mother, because mother had to go to work when his father left, she acted like the surrogate mother. And that's why OJ has enormous amount of respect for Shirley.
But his mother worked at a hospital.
Shirley said. But she's very protective of him, too,
But the mother worked at a hospital, right?
I'd have to check to see. She might. I just don't believe she was a nurse. Okay,
my understanding is, maybe I'm thinking of the sister, but my understanding is that the mother, maybe it was the sister, worked in a hospital where the people who got their jobs in that hospital, in fact, I think it was a psychiatric hospital, got their jobs through Jim Jones, the People's Temple Jim Jones, when he was the head of the employment department for the government in San Francisco.
Well, that might have been, you know. I mean, the one thing about the Simpsons is that they are true San Franciscans, you know.
Right.
And I don't know a whole lot of African Americans from San Francisco. I know, you know, quite a few from the Oakland side of the Bay, but Simpson family was, you know, born and raised in, I mean, not born, but they were raised up in San Francisco, on the San Francisco side of the Bay.
Now, interesting about Simpson's dad, he was a female impersonator, wasn't he?
Well, I understand that he was a homosexual, yeah.
Right.
But see, I have a problem with that. I mean, these individuals have done a lot of due diligence on stuff that really was irrelevant to the objective evidence of this case. And if they could tell you his sexual proclivity, why isn't it that they have not done the same type of due diligence relative to Ron Goldman's criminal background?
I hear you with that. Yeah, I hear you with that. But my point is, I'm trying to figure out if we're thinking that they have some kind of blackmail over Simpson, what could it be, and in what area? His connection to the FBI? You know.
Well,
yeah.
You know, he got a lot of things, man. Drugs. You never know, man. You never know.
Then let's get into that, because there are many allegations about Simpson involved in drug dealing. What do you think of that?
Yes, definitely. I mean, we have enough statements in terms of Simpson using drugs, even at CJ's house, you know, on the golf course.